I listened in silence as my mom laid out her request. They needed my help financially. They wanted me to cover the cost of their renovations. The absurdity of it all was almost laughable. After years of neglect and cruelty, after throwing me out and letting me fend for myself, they now expected me to step in and save them. After all we've been through as a family, we should come together and support one another, my dad added, trying to strike a tone of shared responsibility. It was ironic, really, that they now wanted to play the family card. I took a deep breath, feeling the anger simmering beneath the surface. Why are you really calling, Mom? Is it just about money? The silence on the other end was deafening. Then my mom's voice cracked as she tried to weave guilt into the conversation. We raised you, didn't we? The least you can do is help us now when we need you. A bitter laugh escaped me. Raised me? You threw me out and never looked back. Grandma raised me, not you. The words hung in the air, and for the first time in years, I felt like I had taken back some control. There was a momentary pause before my dad, voice tight and cold, said, "You owe us this. It's the least you could do after all we sacrificed for you." The audacity took my breath away. I wasn't just angry, I was enraged. But then an idea came to mind, a way to end this farce once and for all. "Fine," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'll help you, but only under one condition." My parents were silent, probably shocked that I was even considering it. "What condition?" my dad finally asked. "If you want my help, you need to admit, in front of the entire family and our friends, that Ryan was behind the rumors that ruined my reputation. You need to own up to what you did, throwing me out, choosing him over me without question. I want you to acknowledge every single lie and the pain it caused." My mom gasped and my dad sputtered. "Why would you ask for something like that? That's unreasonable." "No," I countered, my voice firm. "What's unreasonable is expecting me to help you after you treated me like I was nothing. If you want my support now, then the truth needs to come out." They started to argue, their voices rising as they tried to twist the narrative back in their favor, but I wasn't listening anymore. I said my piece and hung up, my heart pounding. I expected the calls and messages to start flooding in, but I was ready for them. I knew this was the beginning of a storm, but it was one I was prepared to face. Over the next few days, my phone didn't stop buzzing. My parents called repeatedly, leaving increasingly desperate and angry voicemails. Ryan even sent a text. "You really think they're going to throw me under the bus for you? You're delusional. Just give them the money and stop being selfish." The audacity made my blood boil, but it also confirmed what I had known all along. Ryan had never changed. It wasn't long before the rest of my extended family caught wind of what was happening. Some called to express their shock, apologizing for not knowing the extent of what I had gone through. Others, probably influenced by my parents, urged me to put the past behind me and do the right thing. But I stood firm. I wasn't the same scared teenager who could be pushed around. I was an adult now, with a successful career and a life I had built from the ground up. I didn't owe anyone anything, least of all the people who had abandoned me. A few weeks later, I received another call, but this time it was from my grandmother. Her voice was steady, filled with both pride and sadness. "I heard what's been happening," she said. "You did the right thing, sweetheart. You don't need to carry their burdens anymore." I smiled, tears pricking the corners of my eyes. "Thanks, Grandma. You're the only family I need." The conversation with my grandmother was a reminder of how far I had come and how much I had survived. I knew the days ahead might still bring challenges, but for the first time, I felt completely in control of my life. My parents and Ryan had been exposed for who they truly were, and I was free from the shadow of their betrayal. I moved forward with my life, investing more time in my career and in therapy, determined to heal the scars left by my past. Invitations for speaking engagements continued to come, and my content writing business flourished. Best of all, I cherished every moment spent with my grandmother, helping her in her garden, laughing together, and building new, positive memories. My parents and brother eventually stopped trying to contact me, probably realizing that I wasn't going to bend to their demands. And for once, the silence was a comfort. I was no longer that teenage girl begging for acceptance. I was a strong, independent woman who had learned to value herself. As I stood in my garden one afternoon, the sun casting a warm glow over everything, I knew that I was finally where I was meant to be. Free from the past, surrounded by love, and ready for whatever came next. Growing up, I was always overshadowed by my twin brother, Ryan. We were born on the same day, shared the same house, and had the same parents, yet it felt like we lived in two different worlds. My parents were convinced that Ryan was destined for greatness, while I was labeled as the family disappointment. Their reasoning was as simple as it was painful. Ryan excelled in academics and appeared mature beyond his years, while I, more social and athletic, didn't fit their mold of success. This disparity in treatment bruised my self-esteem, turning what should have been a childhood filled with warmth and support into a landscape of loneliness and constant comparison. My birthday memories were especially bitter. While Ryan's side of the celebration was always elaborate, decorated with balloons, gifts, and a crowd of his friends, I was an afterthought. His sleepovers were legendary in our small neighborhood, while I was rarely, if ever, allowed to have my friends over. It felt like I was an uninvited guest at my own party. The only light in those years was my grandmother. She would visit us occasionally, bringing my favorite chocolates and slipping a few dollars into my pocket with a wink. She reminded me that I was seen, even if it was only by her. As we grew older, the favoritism shifted into emotional abuse. My parents openly mocked my interests and dismissed my achievements, no matter how hard I worked to earn their approval. I excelled at sports, something I was genuinely passionate about, but they barred me from joining teams or participating in extracurricular activities. They wanted me to emulate Ryan and focus solely on academics, even if that wasn't who I was. The suffocating pressure made home feel more like a prison than a sanctuary. Things took a darker turn during my sophomore year of high school. I got grounded for the simple act of downloading Snapchat, an app that, like any other teenager, I used to stay connected with friends. My parents saw it as a betrayal of their strict rules, accusing me of breaking their trust. They stormed into my room, throwing my things around in a rage, and finally took my door off its hinges, telling me that I no longer deserved privacy. It was humiliating, and as I stood there in tears, my brother watched with a smirk that sent a chill down my spine. Instead of supporting me, Ryan took advantage of the situation. The toxic environment gave him a weapon to use against me. He started spreading lies, painting me as a troublemaker who deserved every punishment I received. When he did something wrong, like stealing money from my dad's wallet, he'd blame me, and my parents, already predisposed to see me as the problem, believed him without question. The lies reached their peak on our 14th birthday. Ryan's friends didn't show up for his party for reasons I never fully understood, while mine surprised me with a small celebration at an ice cream parlor. Ryan's jealousy festered. That week, he began spreading rumors at school, telling everyone that I was abusive at home. He went so far as to punch himself in the face, creating bruises and black eyes to serve as evidence of my supposed attacks. At first, I didn't realize what was happening. The whispers in the hallways, the suspicious glances from my classmates, it all started gradually. Friends who once laughed and talked with me began to drift away, their smiles now strained and conversations short. It was like a switch had flipped, and I was suddenly an outcast. The rumors spread like wildfire, and soon even the teachers were looking at me with a mix of concern and judgment. The situation spiraled out of control when the principal called an emergency meeting. My parents, Ryan, and I were all summoned to his office. I sat there, my heart pounding, as the principal recounted the rumors that had reached his ears. I looked at Ryan, hoping he would tell the truth, but he didn't flinch. He told them all that the rumors were true, painting me as a violent, resentful sister who couldn't handle his success and lashed out at him. My parents listened, wide-eyed and horrified. My mother began to cry, clutching Ryan like he was the victim of some unimaginable horror, while my father praised his bravery for speaking out. I tried to defend myself, tears streaming down my face, as I insisted it was all a lie. The principal shook his head, telling me that the school had a zero-tolerance policy for bullying. I was suspended for 10 days, a punishment meant to set an example. The weight of the unjust accusations suffocated me. My parents dragged me out of the office, their faces filled with anger and shame. At home, my father started packing my belongings without a word. I begged him to listen, to give me a chance to explain, but he was deaf to my pleas. My mother stood by, silent and complicit, as if my existence had suddenly become an inconvenience. Ryan watched with a satisfied expression as my father threw my suitcase into the foyer. I dropped to my knees, sobbing and holding onto my dad's legs, begging him not to throw me out. He pushed me away, saying, "A bully like you doesn't deserve to live here." My heart shattered as he mentioned calling my grandmother to pick me up, as if I were a stray dog they needed to get rid of. When my grandmother arrived, she found me curled up by my belongings, eyes swollen from crying. Without a word, she scooped up my things and led me to her car. Before we left, she confronted my parents, her voice firm and unyielding. "If you come near her again or try to contact her without her permission, I will make sure the authorities know exactly how you treated her," she said, her words slicing through the silence like a knife. My mother tried to protest, blaming me once more, but my grandmother wouldn't hear it. For the first time, I felt a flicker of hope that someone was in my corner. The days that followed were filled with an ache I can't put into words. I stayed at my grandmother's house, unable to eat or sleep. The betrayal from my brother and parents was a wound that refused to heal. My grandmother tried her best to comfort me, reminding me that I wasn't alone and that life would get better. Her faith in me kept me from completely losing myself. When the suspension ended, returning to school felt like walking into a battlefield. The hallways were a gauntlet of stares and whispers. Ryan acted as if I didn't exist, surrounded by a group of newfound friends who believed his lies. Teachers treated me with cautious distance, and I ate lunch alone in the cafeteria, head down and ears burning from the judgment around me. I became a ghost in a place where I once felt at home. My parents never called, never checked in. It was as if I had been erased from their lives. But my grandmother stood by me, encouraging me to keep moving forward. Despite everything, I managed to graduate with good grades and got accepted to college. It was the escape I needed, a chance to start fresh and leave behind the nightmare that had been my life. College was liberating. For the first time, I experienced freedom. No parents watching over my shoulder, no comparisons to Ryan, no suffocating expectations. I formed friendships with people who valued me for who I was, not who I was expected to be. It was in college that I discovered my passion for writing. To make some extra money, I started freelancing as a content writer, working late nights to build a portfolio. It was hard work, but it was mine, and I cherished every moment of it. When I graduated, I decided to take a leap of faith and pursue content writing full-time. My freelance career flourished as I worked with various clients and built a reputation for reliability and creativity. Financial independence allowed me to travel, something I had always dreamed of. Each new place I visited felt like a step further from the pain of my past. Through it all, my grandmother remained my biggest supporter. I visited her often, spending weekends helping her with household chores or chatting for hours over cups of tea. She loved to tell me stories about her youth and hear about my adventures. These moments were precious, a reminder that I wasn't entirely alone. My life took a significant turn when I completed a major project for a well-known brand. It was a career milestone that earned me recognition in the content writing community. Proud of my achievement, I shared a few client reviews and project highlights on social media. The response was overwhelming. Friends, colleagues, and even strangers reached out to congratulate me, and the post quickly spread through online networks. This newfound visibility reached my extended family and, inevitably, my parents. I didn't expect anything from them, so it was a shock when I saw 6 missed calls from my mom one evening. My heart pounded as I stared at my phone, conflicted about whether to return the call. After a moment's hesitation, I dialed back. "Hello," I said, my voice tight with nerves. "Sweetheart, it's so good to hear your voice," my mom said, her tone unnaturally cheerful. Before I could respond, my dad's voice cut in, filled with forced warmth. "We're so proud of you, you know. We saw your interview and heard about your success. It's incredible." I felt a strange detachment as they spoke, like I was listening to strangers. They asked how I was doing and where I lived, their questions edging toward one particular topic. "Money. You must be doing well financially, right?" my dad asked, trying to sound casual. I hesitated, the suspicion growing stronger. "I'm comfortable," I said, keeping my tone neutral. My mom sighed, launching into a story about how their house was falling apart and they didn't have the savings to renovate it.